Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the DeFord Lecture Series. My name is Elizabeth Catlos, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Geological Sciences at the University of Texas at Austin. We're part of the Jackson School of Geosciences, and the DeFord Lecture Series is our departmental seminar series. It's been a requirement and tradition for all graduate students since the late 1940s. The lecture series is named after Professor Roland DeFord, who joined the university as a professor in 1948 with the purpose of enhancing the graduate program of the department. Our lecture series is supported by a range of endowments, and today's speaker is the Judd H and Cynthia S Oualline Centennial Lecturer in Geological Sciences. The lectureship was established in 1983, and the funds exist to bring exceptional and distinguished lecturers to the Jackson School for the benefit of the geosciences community at UT. The endowments honor Mr. Judd H. Oualline of Houston, Texas, who was a 1942 graduate of UT Austin and former vice president and general manager of Getty Oil Company's Southern Exploration and Production Division. He was a director and executive committee member of the Oklahoma Petroleum Council and a member of both the Western Oil and Gas Association and the Illinois Oil and Gas Association. Mr. Oualline was centennial in securing the Getty Oil Company chair, the first company-sponsored chair within the Geology Foundation, which is currently held by Dr. Mark Kloos in the Department of Geological Sciences. Our speaker today will be introduced formally by Dr. Sam Moore, who is the Director of Outreach and Diversity in the Jackson School of Geosciences.
Thank you very much, Liz. It's a great honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Dawn Wright. How happens to make time and schedule for her. She's pretty busy. After 17 years as a professor of geography and ocean Oregon State, Dawn Doctor was a chief scientist at Esri. Most people, you know it as Esri, Environmental Systems Research Institute, world-leading geographic information system software services, and that happened in 2011. So as chief scientist of Esri, Dawn works directly with the CEO on strengthening scientific software services, while also representing Esri to the national, international scientific community. She maintains an affiliated faculty in college and atmospheric sciences. Dawn's research interest includes geographic information science, ocean informatics, and cyberstructure, benthic terrain and habitat characterization, and processing and interpretation of high-resolution bathymetry, video, and underwater photographic images. Hopefully, co-authored more than 180 articles and 12 books on marine GIS, hydrothermal activity and tectonics of mid-ocean ridges, and marine data modeling. Dawn's participated in over 20 oceanographic research expeditions worldwide, including 10 legs of the ocean drilling program aboard the in deep submergence vehicle Alvin and 2 dives in Pisces 5. And we know not many people on the planet have been in that, so it's a great pleasure to have here. The advisory board service includes the Science Advisory Board for NOAA, EPA, Science Advisory Council International, and many other. Started here, NSF Career Award recipient. Among her honors, she's a fellow of AAAS, GS Association of Geographers, the Oceanographic Society, the California Academy of Sciences, and Stanford's Leopold Leadership Program. And she was actually here. And just recently in April, Dawn was elected to the National Academy of Sciences and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Congratulations on that, Dawn. It's a great honor. Dawn's PhD is in physical geography and marine biology from UC Santa Barbara, and her BS is from Wheaton College. You know, I'm from Illinois, is Dawn. And the interesting part, gotta have the interesting part, includes that Dawn enjoys road cycling, mountain biking, green, bear, 16th century pilots, and her golden retriever puppy, Riley. So without further ado, oh, and don't forget, Dr. Dawn, honor. Dawn?
Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate that gracious introduction. And congratulations also to Liz for all of the many years hosting this wonderful series. And to the Oualline family for this lectureship and the opportunity to speak to you. So I am going to go offshore a bit and talk about some oceanography. And the title of my talk is 52 Million Points and Counting, a new stratification approach for mapping and modeling the ocean. And this is work that's been going on for several years now with several of us at Esri, but also in close collaboration and leadership by Roger Sayer of the U.S. Geological Survey, and also the many partners that you see on the bottom of this slide. This project is, I think, a very nice example of a public-private partnership among industry partners, government agencies in the U.S. and New Zealand, universities across the U.S. and also in New Zealand, and also conservation organizations in Europe, the U.S., and again in New Zealand. So I hope you enjoy this. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this with you is because this is also an example of a work that is really at the core of what the group on Earth observations is championing as well. The map and the data from this project, they were both commissioned by the group on Earth observations. And if you're not familiar with GEO is really a mini United Nations of sorts. It consists of 112 nations, plus the European Commission, and another 145 partners and associate members, such as us at Esri, but also the Earth Science Information Partners, the Open Geospatial Consortium, the Global Ocean Observing System, the International Science Council, the European Space Agency, and many more. And we are all collaborating to build a global Earth observation system of systems. It's often referred to as GEOS. And within that, there is a flagship program within GEO called the Biodiversity Observation Network, that is GEOBON, and a global community activity called ECO, Global Ecosystems. And so that's where all of this work fits in. And there is a blog post that I made a few weeks ago that's in the latest version of ARC News that talks about Esri's broader relationship with the group on Earth observation. So if you're interested in that, especially if you're interested in GEO, I would encourage you to read this short article. In fact, as you can see at the top, there is a URL to reach this article. And I'm going to provide to the school the slides to this to go along with the recording that you'll have so that you have additional notes. Now within GEO, one of the things that's very interesting about it is that there are 9 societal benefit areas that frame the work of this group on Earth observations and the global Earth observation system of systems. And you can see on the left all of those different societal benefit areas such as disaster resilience, public health surveillance, sustainable development. The societal benefit area that this work is under is biodiversity and ecosystem sustainability. So there are many mapping tasks that are under that societal benefit area, and our project falls under the GEO Global Ecosystem Initiative. It's also part of the GEOS task, so these stem back to 2014 and 2016. And the whole idea is to complete a global ecosystem classification and mapping of the entire planet, terrestrial, marine, and freshwater. So before I really talk about what will be known as the ecological marine units, I want to just say a little bit about our very first effort under this commissioned work, which is an effort to map the world's ecosystems on land. And this effort was called the Ecological Land Units. It's also now referred to as World Ecosystems. And the idea was to find the best, most authoritative global data sets to really cover this on a global scale. And we were able to do this at a 250 meter resolution for the planet. And we focused on bioclimate, landform, and lithology. And through a lot of research and a lot of trial and error and a lot of discussion among our group, we determined that those 3 layers were the most important physical drivers of land cover, which is the response to that physical setting of bioclimate, landform, and lithology. And so together with those 4 layers, we were able to come up with a standard repeatable accounting framework for ecosystems to help GEO with a global view of environmental diversity. And as you'll see, we attempted to move this into the ocean realm as well. And the way that this accounting system works is that at a global scale, we can describe any 250 meter pixel on the planet in terms of the Earth's terrain, in terms of these 4 variables. So for instance, you see the variables in different colors. And if we go to one of our global maps, which is in the middle of this slide, we can describe a place according to those variables. So for instance, a place might be warm, wet plains on metamorphic rock with mostly deciduous forest. And so that expression is a reflection of the 4 variables that went into that ecological land unit. And in this way, we also tie this to ecoregions and other ways of describing the Earth's ecosystem that does not supersede those. It is just a different way of thinking of these regions at a global scale. So moving from the ecological land units to the ocean, we came up with the ecological marine units. And again, this is something that is complementary to the existing ways that we look at regions across the ocean, such as the large marine ecosystems or the International Hydrographic Organization's seas and oceans designations. Of course, we know about the EEZ, or the Exclusive Economic Zone, their biogeographic realms or marine ecoregions of the world, the MEOWs, the global ocean, open ocean and deep sea designations, the GOODS, the UN FAO fisheries designations, Longhurst pelagic ecosystems, and more. But what we wanted to do that was a little different was to cover all of the ocean with our ecosystem characterization, meaning not just the surface, as these regions on the left are superficial ways of chopping up the ocean and characterizing the ocean just at the surface. We wanted to cover the entire ocean from the sea surface all the way down to the seafloor. Do it in 3 dimensions, not just 2 dimensions, and have something that is fully quantifiable through the water column. And so instead of just reflecting researchers' perceptions and local experiences, again, at the surface of the ocean, what we have tried to do is to provide this quantitative definition for areas within the ocean, epipelagic, mesopelagic, bathypelagic, etc. And of course, to promote the further understanding of how the environment structures itself for biodiversity, for the actual species. So that was philosophically what we were after. But how, as with the land, how do we get the best physical setting for the ocean, which in turn drives its ecological character? And what is the best global data set to achieve that? Well, we decided on NOAA's World Ocean Atlas, and our work started with version 2 of the 2013 Ocean Atlas. We have right now just upgraded our work to the new 2018 version. But the World Ocean Atlas is probably the best available data set of objectively analyzed climatologies for all of the major physical parameters of the world's oceans. So if you look at the bottom of this slide, the 6 major physical parameters are temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, and then the nitrate, silicate, and phosphate nutrients. And the map that you're seeing is the temperature, the World Ocean Atlas temperature contour map. And along with that is a reference to that temperature data set. And I wanted to put the reference to the data set there because that's also a very important trend that we're seeing now, where data sets are entities that can be cited with digital object identifiers, not just journal articles. So we actually have 6 references for the World Ocean Atlas that we're using in this study to go along with these 6 variables. And spatially, the World Ocean Atlas at its finest resolution is about 1/4 of a degree, or 27 kilometers at the equator, for all of these variables, except for the nutrients, which are at 1 kilometer. And so we had to subsample the nutrients to match the 1/4 degree resolution. So there's a little bit of source of error there. But another wonderful thing about the World Ocean Atlas, if you look to the right, is that the data are available for 102 depth zones. And these zones range in thickness from 5 meters at the surface to 100 meters in the deep ocean. So that is very, very important for characterizing the entire ocean, not just the surface, through the water column. And there's also, of course, with the oceans, there's the important temporal component. So the World Ocean Atlas in the 2013 version has 5 or 6 decadal averages. So really what we did was one point in our mesh is an average of a 57-year period. So it's really an average of the prominent mean of temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, nitrate, silicate, and phosphate over 50 years. We are working to make that much better in terms of pulling out seasonal time averages, and also working with individuals doing case studies so that they can actually add their own high temporal resolution data into the EMUs. And in terms of how we build something like this, this is where the 52 million points comes in, because if you go look over to the left, the first thing that we did was to build a 3D framework in GIS, basically using a point mesh, where we extracted the World Ocean Atlas data into this point mesh and created 52,487,000 points, each point with at least 6 of those World Ocean Atlas attributes. And then the next step was to attribute those mesh points with the physical, chemical parameters, in addition to the XYZ coordinates. But this framework is actually where additional attributes can be added in a GIS sense, because there you can add species, abundance, and distribution, the real biological and ecological data. So it is very interesting because former NOAA Administrator Kathy Sullivan described our framework here as a Christmas tree, so that you can hang additional ornaments on this Christmas tree, or additional feature attributes, as you're seeing in the middle of the slide. Then came the very interesting part, because 52 million points is very hard to deal with. So we actually used a k-means statistical clustering algorithm to identify more physically distinct but relatively homogeneous volumetric regions in the water column from those 52 million points. So these volumes are essentially the ecological marine units, or the EMUs. Then we used a backwards stepwise discriminant analysis to determine if all 6 of the variables contributed significantly to the clustering. So we did find that all 6, temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, and the 3 nutrients, did contribute significantly, statistically significantly, to these volumes. Then the pseudo-F statistic gave us the optimum number of clusters throughout the global ocean, which is 37. So there are 37 ecological marine units for the world ocean at this point. And finally, we used canonical discriminant analysis to verify that all 37 of those clusters were significantly different from one another. So we benefited from the great work of our spatial statistics team at Esri in doing that. And then finally, we wanted to add a very accurate and detailed layer to the EMUs at the top. So we used MODIS Ocean Color Seascape characterization from Maria Kavanaugh's group, now at Oregon State University. That's at the top of this stack of volumes. And then at the bottom, we used the seafloor physiographic regions and features of Peter Harris et al. His work, which was originally done at Geosciences Australia, and he's now at Grid Arundel. And that gave us a geomorphological base, all of the geomorphological features of the ocean at the bottom. So that, in a sense, is our digital 3D ocean. And we summarized each of the 37 clusters, or each of the 37 ecological marine units in this way. This is lucky number 13, EMU 13, which is one of the biggest of the EMUs, covering in purple on the map that you see here. And when you look at this map, the gradations in color are not depth. They're actually the thickness of EMU 13 in those different areas. So it's a very thick and deep cluster, for instance, in the Western Pacific. And the technical name of this EMU 13 is similar to how we named the ecological land units based on the variables that went into it. So this is a bathypelagic, very cold, euhaline, hypoxic, high nitrate, medium phosphate, high silicate ecological marine unit. We also have common translations for these names based on the NOAA CMEX, the Coastal Marine Ecosystem Classification System. It basically shortens things a bit. So this is a deep EMU, and you can see all the purple in the map. It's very cold, normal salinity, high nitrate, medium phosphate, and high silicate. And for each of these EMUs, we have not only the statistics that characterizes them, but the vertical profile, so that you can see how all of the major parameters change. So this is the standard oceanographic depth profile for Ecological Marine Unit 13. And again, there are 37 of these in total. So this was very interesting to us because one of the things that we wanted to find out was if our depth findings supported traditional ocean zonation concepts. And this is from a standard oceanographic textbook where you see the zones of the ocean. For instance, the epipelagic zone in the upper part of the ocean, mesopelagic, pelagic, bathypelagic, abyssopelagic. We are used to thinking of these as strictly horizontal layers within the ocean. And so that is, again, what our perception is. And oftentimes we do find this with a little bit of the sampling that we've been able to do throughout the ocean. But given our global data set, and given how we were able to do a data-driven clustering of these 52 million observations, and I should say that many of those observations come from the Argo network of floats, the 4,000 floats that are throughout all of the world ocean. This is very interesting what we found, and it's been published in Oceanography and also Nature Scientific Reports. Looking at the maps on the left, this is thinking about things horizontally at the surface down to 200 meters, 400, 800, 1200, 1800, 2400, and 3800. So you see the 37 mutually exclusive EMU clusters, and the land actually shows the ELUs, but these represent the maximum global horizontal dimensions of those clusters at these selected depths and in those different colors. But very interestingly, on the right, this is a vertical profile area graph with depth on the y-axis and cell count for each cluster per area on the x-axis. And it shows the variety of clusters at the top of the water column, because those numbers in the white circles are actually 1 through 37 for all of the EMUs. And we can see how Each cluster either slowly disappears with depth, or in some cases, deep water clusters become more dominant. And basically what we're seeing here is that there is no simple, clear-cut horizontal boundary for these water attributes. We're still working on this because a future overlay of depth distribution on this will be very informative and also taking a look at this with the 2018 data. And how do you visualize something like this? Something that is really continuous, these 37 voluminous blobs in the ocean? Well, I'm going to switch over now to another screen to show you a visualization of this. And this is actually flying into the ocean near Hawaii. And what you're looking at are these cylinders that pop up, and they represent the data points from NOAA's World Ocean Atlas, the 52 million observations over a span of 50 years of these principal characteristics at all of these depth levels. And so this, by looking at these columns and the different colors within the columns, are showing you the different EMUs. For some of these places in the ocean, we can identify with, in this case, we used red discs to show you where the ocean is particularly deoxygenated over the 50 years within the Pacific Ocean. But this is one way to visualize this. Another way to visualize it is with this very unique projected coordinate system, which is the Spielhouse projected coordinate system, which shows all of the oceans as one ocean with Antarctica in the middle. And our projection geometry team did the mathematics from the original Athelstan Spielhouse work in order to actually implement this in ArcGIS. And so you can move into any of these areas of the ocean, see the 52 million points in 2 dimensions. This is temperature right at the surface, but we can scroll down in depth, and we're looking at a point distribution now that's at 200 meters depth. Same thing with salinity, and wherever we move the cursor, we're getting immediately the vertical profile for, in this case, for salinity or for temperature, or for both salinity and temperature. We have a new legend here that shows where things are low salinity, warm water, all the way to high salinity, cold water. And we again have this for the entire world ocean. This is using an API, the ArcGIS API for JavaScript. And then we've also added to this, this is temperature in the Antarctic, but also we're showing currents as well, because we have been able to add to the ecological marine units the global ocean current vectors at multiple depths, courtesy of the DRACAR consortium data of the European Union. So we've added global currents at 46 vertical levels, and this is a climatological mean of these currents from the period of 2000 to 2012. So again, this is for the entire world ocean. So these are some really interesting ways to visualize these data, and it's been a lot of fun developing those as well, especially to communicate our work not only to scientific audiences, but also to educational audiences. And I wanted to just show how people have been using the ecological marine units, because it's essentially available as an open geospatial consortium geo package, an open geo package, or given that I'm from Esri, we have this, of course, in ArcGIS Pro as an ArcGIS Pro package, and you can load the data into a 3D scene, revealing this visualization with those columns. And you can do things such as create curtain or fence diagrams that are queryable, so you can lay out transects for instance, over this study area. And then in this case, the transects are still there. We've made the columns a little narrower so that we can see a little better in this visualization. And then calculate a curtain or a fence diagram showing the distribution of these EMUs, again, from the surface down to the seafloor. And each of these diagrams is queryable. So if you query any of the colored layers in this diagram, it gives you what's going on at that particular point. So in this case, we're looking at EMU cluster 3 with all of the statistics associated with it. In addition, some additional statistics attributes that are there in terms of the chlorophyll A 12-year average. And we are actually, in terms of the bottom of the ocean, we are sitting atop abyssal hills, the geomorphology in this part of the Pacific Ocean. We can do all kinds of other things, especially with salinity and temperature, in terms of how noise propagates through the ocean. This other screen here shows the results of a Python script that integrated with scientific libraries to calculate the temperature profile and a sound speed profile. In fact, our ArcGIS software can do this now as well without connecting to additional scientific libraries. But the idea here was to calculate the base of the mix layer and also to show the thermocline and the inflection point of the sound speed profile, which is the approximate location of the SOFAR channel, and then to take that depth of the SOFAR channel out into a surface, a three-dimensional surface that can be added to the map. And in this case, this was a nice little study that we did about whales. So we know that whales are known to dive down deep to that deep sound channel to communicate over long distances. So we did add a whale to the scene that we got from a 3D procedural library. And then the next step here was to, of course, make sure that these are true three-dimensional data structures within GIS, not a pixel, not a two-dimensional pixel, but a voxel, a three-dimensional volume element instead of a two-dimensional picture element. So voxels have been a long-standing need in GIS software, especially for geologists and geophysicists and oceanographers. So this shows the output of the true voxel 3D data structure in ArcGIS. You can see a video about this at the top from this YouTube link. And so those are the ecological marine units as voxels. And of course, we want to be able to do this for terrestrial examples. So I had to show this to you as well, because we have always wanted to go into the subsurface and view seismic reflection profiles or associated geological cross sections. This is from the Dutch Geological Survey, which provided these data. Slice it up at multiple angles, do this type of interactive visualization, and some calculated analytics within our system as well. So this has been really a wonderful project, because it has not only been great for the science that we've been able to discover and published in these outlets that you're seeing on the right, Oceanography, Nature, and so forth, but it's actually pushed the limits of our software here at Esri and helped us to make better software, which is always a win-win. And of course, we have apps. There's a phone app. There is a mobile tablet app, and a lot of resources where you can explore further. So these publications and apps are available. We also really wanted to guide researchers in the use of modeling their own data within the EMU framework. So we, of course, use the World Ocean Atlas, but we now have a workflow that allows you to take your own data, especially if it's ocean observatory data or integrated ocean observing system data, or if you have data that's associated with a marine protected area, because that was also one of the impetuses for this work, was to guide marine protected area design so that you can build your own mesh, attach your own data, perform your spatial analyses, visualize and share your results. So along those lines, we have a workflow to help you localize down from the global scale to local EMUs. So for instance, on the left, from Monterey Bay in California, if we plop our EMU columns, for instance, in this small area, the resolution, the coverage is not very good. But with our workflow, you can take another data set. So for instance, there is the more detailed World Ocean Database of the UN IOC that can be used, or your own, again, your own database. And you can get a much better resolution and build your own local EMU for that region. So this is the GIS workflow to build that localized, more high resolution 3D mesh and ecological marine units. And you can get this workflow from the URL that's in yellow. But the way that the workflow starts is to have you practice with NOAA Select, with that tool to pull out the NOAA World Ocean Database data, extract it, correct it, create your 3D points, look at your mesh density to make sure that you have proper coverage throughout your area, create your 3D mesh, interpolate where you need to, do the clustering, the same clustering workflow that we use, which has been proven to be accurate, and then to output your local ecological marine units with a 3D visualization. So we've had around 15 organizations and individuals who have been doing use cases like this with the ecological marine units. A couple of them have been master's students doing this for their theses, and this is from a AGU poster where we showcased 6 of these use cases from around the world, and made the connection to the GEO Marine Biodiversity Observation Network, given that the ecological marine units, again, is a contribution to GEO commissioned by them. And another interesting outcome now is that the ecological marine units are going to be considered as part of this new United Nations program that's being proposed for the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. And this is a program led by Geomar in Kiel, Germany, but with all of these partners. And we are seeking to build digital twins of the ocean. So this is a new program that will be known as DIDO. And if you're unfamiliar with digital twins, they're really starting to take off, because these are essentially virtual representations of an object or a process or a system that bridges the gap between the physical and the digital world. So if you have seen, for instance, Big Hero 6, that wonderful Disney movie, that was a digital twin. San Francisco is a digital twin that was developed using ArcGIS City Engine. That was a fantastic setting for that movie. But for science, what we're seeking is more than just a visualization. We want to go beyond a digital model, such as what is the state of the ocean today, or how will it change tomorrow. What we're trying to do is to build more predictive what-if scenarios in this digital twin, so that we can answer questions such as how will the ocean change if human activities are such and such, or if humans continue to pollute or to clean up, or whatever they decide to do with the environment, how will that affect the ocean. So that has just started. We're still waiting to hear from the UN about their endorsement of that program. But in the meantime, we do have a couple of really great learning modules for the classroom. This is one that was based on a study that was presented at the AGU. It was covered in the EOS transactions, but it's actually a free learn module, and it's about machine learning. So there's a workflow in this learning module to help you to establish the relationship between seagrass occurrence and ocean conditions going on into the future using the ecological marine units, and learning about at least 4 machine learning techniques so that you can model that relationship, or especially model the relationship of temperature to seagrass occurrence. And we've actually done the study ourselves, which is on the left, and found a nice correlation with an observed seagrass distribution, which is published and shown on the right. But you can get that free learning module. It comes with free software, free data, and all the instructions so that you can use it in a classroom setting or in a lab in the yellow. And then another thing that's happening is that we are extending the ecological marine units again to this World Ocean Atlas 2018 data. That data has just been incorporated, and we're working on new visualizations, new ecological marine units, a new digital ocean based on that updated 2018 data, and then extending this to the coast from ecological marine units to ecological coastal units. And so this is an advanced picture of a book chapter that's coming out this summer in Wright and Harder. My colleague Christian Harder and I were doing a 3rd volume of GIS for Science, Maps for Saving the Planet, and this is the work of our colleague Roger Sayer, along with many of us, talking about the ecological coastal units, which extends the ecological marine units into a coastal segmentation approach, looking at ocean attributes combined with coastal attributes combined with land attributes. So it brings the ELU, the EMU into the ECU. So I'm looking at my clock here, and I think I'm just about at the maximum time, which is great because I'm at the last slide here. So I really want to thank you for listening to me talk about this very interesting project. And if you'd like to know more, the Ecological Marine Units project has a web presence at the top here in the yellow. This fairly long URL is where you can find out more about the ecological marine units, and you can also take a closer look at that JavaScript API visualization of the Spielhouse projected coordinate system that I showed. You can get all of the data and the apps at esriurl.com/emu open data in the white here. The reference to the initial paper that was published about this, Sayer et al. 2017, that's in Oceanography. If you would like these slides, you can go to esriurl.com Texas to get the slides. And a final thank you to all of the colleagues who have worked on this project from the USGS, NatureServe, the Marine Conservation Institute, Duke, NIWA, which is the NOAA equivalent in New Zealand, the University of Auckland, Oregon State, Grid Arendal in Norway, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, NASA, NOAA, of course, us, and again, thanks to Geo for commissioning this original work.
We have another comment in the Q&A from Rowan Martindale, who is a paleontologist and sedimentologist. And she says, wonderful talk. Thank you. I need to think about how to use this data. Not playing with the app on my phone. Wish could have snagged you for our happy hour after this talk. Yeah, just for our students, what is the easiest entry point into Esri? Is it the phone app? I remember I went to like some GSA short course years ago and tried to figure out how to use the software. What's the easiest way for a novice to get involved with Esri? Is it now the phone apps or just really easily downloaded information from the net?
Yes, so there are some wonderful web apps I would say the web apps are the best. So if you're sitting in front of your computer and you want to explore a lot of these projects that we have produced, a lot of these data sets, and we do have a lot of visualization apps. Let me go into the chat here. I would say to go into the Living Atlas of the World. So I'm going to put it into the chat. It's the Esri Living Atlas of the World, and ecological marine units are in the Living Atlas as well. So it's livingatlas.arcgis.com. And there are some phone apps that you can access there as well. But then there's also I would say, let me just look this up really fast. There are also these free modules that you can use to learn the software itself along with the data, and that's what we call Learn ArcGIS. And I think that's one of the best avenues. I mean, we have courses. We have there are all kinds of ways to get at our products and content. But if you go to the Learn ArcGIS Hub, I think that's a great way to just start learning and experiencing things on your own. And there are all kinds of things there for K through gray audiences.
So thanks so much for coming. And I know that there's a comment here in the chat for you from William Doolittle. He gave you his email address. He wants to send you a small gift of thanks from his department. I hope you can get that question, get his email from the chat. And thank you everyone for coming, and we shall see you next year.